But this was just a high-level chart, as is this one. It starts to look at the different components and how they interrelate. So where we come from is, regardless of what your leanings on the Bible is, there is in the Bible a lot of begots. If you've ever looked at some of the Old Testament, this person begot these people. So if you look at your family tree, if you've ever looked at that, of course, there's advertisements now on TV for your being able to send your blood sample in or cotton swab in and get your genetic connection back to your ancestry out of Ancestry.com. So this whole idea of things begetting other things is true even in the architecture framework world. So, most track it back to, although there may be others out there, I'm sure, that will say, well, no, this also came up. But at least from a United States perspective, the Zachman framework was seen as probably the birthplace of the modern day concept of the enterprise architecture framework. And from this, the influencing of the EAP and the TISF was influenced there, and then the Federal Enterprise Architecture Framework and Technical Enterprise Architecture Framework 2000. From there, also influencing was the NIST Enterprise Architecture, which tied in influencing there. Also, POSIX was out here on the far right as an outlier there, influencing the development of TAFM. And this is all more over here to the right. So this is more industry related on the left of the dates there. And of course you can see where the TOGAF is both industry as well as federal government. But the DoD tied in around this same time because of the C4 ISR, because of the Clean Air Code Act in the 90s. But they were behind industry about 10 years. Even though there were elements of an enterprise architecture components, the true structure and guidebook, rule books, if you will, of a framework really didn't come about until the processes of the 90s, which is where I got involved in the federal world as a result of this. The JTA, Joint Technical Architecture, and of course the C4ISR is a precursor to the DODAF, and it specifically dealt with the structure of systems, and then the Army Enterprise Architecture Guidance in '98. So is what the C4ISR is based on. And even today that the architectures lead on beyond this. So there's other frameworks out there, some commercial that would deny, like Gartner, that would probably deny having any connection to any of them. However, they're definitely going to point to the Zachman. When you see it, it was so all-inclusive. There's nothing else but you can go to the website and look at the specifics here. Also, in some of your reading material, you'll find a little more clearer picture of this particular diagram. But this is the overall enterprise architecture framework that Zachman developed. And the structure, as I mentioned when we were talking about organization, order, is it across the top. It asks what, how, where, who, when, and why. And down the left, it gets into more and more granular. So here you have the planner, and more the executive level designer, or owner, I'm sorry, designer. And the technology modeling. So here you have then where you get into specifically developing the linkages to the data, specific functionality linkages, and then down to the detailed presentation. So here you're getting into the elements and so forth. And then here there's examples of data being in the what, the how being the reason, and so forth. The where, the network, or even physical location, and the who, people, time, and then the basic why. Or motivation. So no one ever took the Zachman framework and actually did their enterprise architecture from it. So all the other frameworks actually utilize the components, but are never so thorough. And you'll understand why later on in the class as we go into how and the whys of doing this, because it's seen as an overkill if you actually implement or execute. It's more than what any organization would need and would not be efficient or effective to do every aspect of it in a holistic approach to the Zachman. But the Zachman does incorporate all those things that are seen as important. It draws upon the disciplines of classic architecture to establish the vocabulary and set of perspectives, framework defining and describing today's complex enterprise systems. It provides really a blueprint or architecture for the organization's information infrastructure. Now the framework doesn't. Again, remember, it's a guideline or guide. It provides the structure to do that, but the blueprint would be obviously for that organization to then utilize this guide or framework to produce the artifacts for the actual enterprise architecture. So it's a fundamental for successful participation in the global interaction of the 21st century. So again, along with this evolution of organizations and governments, it's become an awareness that in order to utilize technology, this is an important aspect of being able to build the future, establishing a basis for assimilating high rates of change, advancing the state-of-the-art in design, managing the knowledge of the enterprise, and integrating the technology in the fabric of the enterprise. So business processes, tools, we'll look a lot more at this later, but of course this is an older tool matrix that Gartner publishes and does evaluation of tools and products, but IDS, Shears, Performa, Telelogic, one that I've used, Microsoft, IBM, I've used and seen, are just a few of the top leaders in the domain world, which Telelogic actually was bought out by IBM and built into their Rational suite.